Vanessa Brooks didn't trust anyone who smiled that much before 10 a.m., especially not Blake Harrison, VP of Content at Vibe House, who greeted her on her first day like he'd just stepped out of a Peloton commercial. Blinding grin, manicured stubble, and a blazer that had to be more expensive than her rent. Vanessa Brooks, the voice of the moment, he beamed, extending a hand. Vanessa raised an eyebrow but shook it. Wow, that's a lot of pressure for someone who still can't figure out how to work Slack. Don't worry, he chuckled. I'll mentor you through it. She caught the twinkle in his eye, the too easy charm. PR guy. Probably had a whole notes app of preloaded compliments. Vanessa had written a viral Medium piece called Woke Fatigue and the Pop Culture Paradox that had torn through Twitter faster than a Lizzo gif, landing her a contract at Vibe House. She figured they wanted her voice, but she wasn't sure yet if they wanted her. Vibe House's office looked exactly how she imagined. Open floor plan, neon signs that said things like, "Create chaos," and "Data is sexy," kombucha on tap, and a questionable mural of Michelle Obama dabbing next to Steve Jobs. She tried not to stare. Blake gestured to a cluster of desks. "This is home base. It's loud and fast, and usually full of small fires. You'll get used to it. If not, just pretend like you are. That's our unofficial motto." Vanessa nodded, tossing her tote under an empty desk. She opened her laptop. The login screen mocked her. "So," Blake said, leaning on the desk next to hers. "Just so you know, you've been assigned to me. For mentoring. Mostly for onboarding, vibes, occasional moral support." She squinted at him. "And whose idea was that?" He grinned. "Let's just say, leadership felt the team could better integrate talent from diverse storytelling spheres." "Wow, did they give you that line on a laminated card?" His smile faltered just a beat before bouncing back. "Okay, I deserve that." She turned back to her screen. "Cool. Well, let me know when the part of this mentorship involves money or publishing freedom." Blake laughed, genuine this time, and walked off, but not before glancing back once. Vanessa noticed. She also noticed the way he adjusted his posture whenever people walked by, like he was auditioning for a TED Talk. 2 days later, she sat in a crowded team meeting while Blake clicked through a slideshow titled Voices of the Now, Building Culture Through Bold Content. "As part of our pivot toward authenticity-driven narratives," Blake said, emphasizing every buzzword like he was trying to sell it to himself, "we're launching a new campaign spotlighting writers who reflect the real zeitgeist." Slides flashed, stock images of young Black creatives, protest signs, someone with turquoise braids on a skateboard. Vanessa shifted in her seat. Blake clicked again. "We're looking for essays, video content, op-eds, whatever format tells the story. Think, radical, unfiltered, necessary. And when I say necessary, I mean urgent, sharp, challenging. Like," he let the sentence hang, eyes drifting, no, aiming, right at Vanessa. She gave him a tight smile. After the meeting, he cornered her near the cold brew station. "Look, I know that probably came off heavy-handed," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Probably," she asked, stirring oat milk into her cup. "I'm just saying, your piece, Woke Fatigue, it hit. It said something the rest of us couldn't. That's what Voices of the Now is meant to be about." "Meant to be," she echoed. "But is it really, or is this just the quarterly brand facelift?" Blake paused. "Okay, fair. Look, I didn't build the campaign to tokenize anyone." "Didn't you, though?" she said softly, then added, "You might not even realize it, that's the problem." He looked like he wanted to defend himself, but thought better of it. He exhaled. "I want your writing in the campaign. Because it's good, not because it makes me look good." She stared at him, reading past the practiced humility. "Cool," she said, nodding slowly. "Well, if you really want my voice in it, you won't try to edit it into something it's not." His eyes lit up, but before he could speak, she walked off, sipping her coffee. That night, Vanessa sat in her studio apartment, laptop balanced on a stack of books. She pulled up a blank doc. Title: Why Diverse Voices Campaigns Often Miss the Point. She didn't know if she was going to write it, but she needed to know if Blake would flinch. By the third week at Vibe House, Vanessa had settled into the rhythm of digital chaos. Morning stand-ups that felt like improv comedy with a touch of anxiety. An endless stream of Slack pings from people who forgot she was new. And late afternoons, fueled by cold brew and silent judgment. She didn't love it, but she was surviving, which, in her experience, was half the battle at any job where buzzwords were spoken like gospel, and creative freedom meant staying late to fix someone else's pitch deck. Blake, vaguely annoyingly, was everywhere. Not just in the obvious sense like team meetings, campaign decks, corporate Instagram stories, but he made his presence felt even beyond the actual work zones. Like the side channel he'd created just for them, labeled #ContentBrainstormZone with a light bulb emoji, where work-related messages started slipping into casual observations and offhand jokes. It started simple. Memes, reactions to trending stories, commentary on Vibe House's general absurdity. But then there were messages at 10:47 p.m. about tone and rhythm in one of her essays, followed by a compliment that hovered somewhere between professional and personal. Your piece has this heat that the rest of our site just doesn't. It moves, like you know where the reader's going before they do. She'd stared at that one a long moment before responding. Cool. Let me know when you're ready to pay me like a psychic. He responded with a laughing emoji, and then, touche, let's fix that too. Their banter turned rhythmic, almost like a private game that made the drudgery of content meetings a little more bearable. He'd drop comments like, your voice makes even fluff pieces sound like literature. And she'd volley back with, that sounds like a compliment with performance metrics attached. It was flirtation with disclaimers, warm, but never fully declared. She liked talking to him, and hated that she liked it. Every compliment felt genuine until it didn't. Every shared laugh felt real until she saw him pitch her phrasing, her exact phrasing, in a Tuesday editorial meeting without credit, as if her voice had been collected and redistributed like stock language. She noticed it first in a deck slide for the Voices of the Now campaign, where one of her private brainstorming notes had become a headline. Culture isn't moving faster, it's getting louder. It was a line she typed in their Slack thread 3 nights earlier. He hadn't even changed the punctuation. She watched him present it like it was part of his process, part of his brand of confident storytelling, and felt the slow fist of suspicion tighten in her chest, slowly and surely, building like fog before it settles into a steady, unstopping grudge. Blake wasn't stupid. He could tell her mood shifted. Even if she didn't call it out directly, she still responded to his messages, still sent ideas when asked, but the tone had sharpened. He asked once if she was okay, and she said, fine. Just writing. You know, my actual job. He didn't push. Meanwhile, pressure was building behind the scenes. There was a major brand deal with a music streaming platform hinging on a new digital vertical called LoudType, supposedly a hub for next-gen cultural essays, which basically meant they wanted Vanessa to write half the content and Blake to sell it like he thought of it in the shower. Executives had started quoting her Medium post in meetings, and HR kept saying things like, "It's so nice to have fresh perspectives around here." She felt like she'd been handed a stage and a script at the same time. Speak, but don't go off book. Then came the offsite. Vibe House had rented a loft in Oakland for an overnight innovation retreat, which mostly meant cold pizza, whiteboards covered in buzzwords, and team-building exercises that looked suspiciously like group therapy. Vanessa had almost skipped it, but decided at the last minute she wanted to see who Blake was when the office backdrop was stripped away. It was just after 11 p.m. when they ended up on the rooftop, the group having thinned out after dinner and small talk. The city was quiet in that Bay Area way, where the distant hum of traffic and wisps of faraway conversation are carried by the wind. But apart from that, they were alone. Blake stood next to her, a beer in hand, the glass sweating in his fingers. "I know I've messed up a couple things," he said, after a long pause. "I'm figuring it out. Working with you isn't just exciting." "Don't say inspiring," she cut in. He smirked. "I wasn't going to. I was going to say, complicated. But worth it." She looked at him then, not smiling. "Because I make you look better in meetings?" He winced a little, but didn't look away. "Because I like who I am when I'm talking to you." That line sat between them, a burst of sudden honesty that either of them had expected to appear. The air was suddenly electrified, and he stepped closer, just a little. But it was enough. Her pulse picked up, but she held his gaze. He wasn't touching her. He hadn't crossed a line yet, but he was thinking about it. "Blake," she said, quieter now, "don't be that guy." He stopped, standing so close she could feel the tension humming like a wire between them. "What guy?" A guy who flirts with the junior black woman while lifting her ideas like free samples. The guy who makes everything seem like a partnership until it's time to share credit. The guy who says, "It's complicated," like that's supposed to make it romantic. He looked like he'd been slapped, but not unfairly. "I didn't mean." "I know what you meant," she said. "And I'm not saying I don't see it too. Whatever this is. But I'm not here to help you figure yourself out. You're a grown man, and I'm not an archetype." She stepped back, hands in her jacket pockets. "I'm going to bed," she said. "You should too." He didn't follow. She appreciated that. Later that night, lying in a strange Airbnb bed with startup energy buzzing through the walls, Vanessa stared at the ceiling and thought about how chemistry could be the start of something beautiful or the setup for something messy. And the worst part was never knowing which one it was until it was already too late. The thing about Vibe House was that information didn't travel in straight lines. It bled sideways through Slack threads, inside jokes at the kombucha tap, and passive-aggressive comment threads on Google Docs. So when Blake stood up for Vanessa's pitch in a closed-door meeting with the CEO and 3 department heads, it only took 45 minutes for the story to reach the entire team. With revisions. By lunchtime, the version making the rounds was that Blake had gone full white knight, interrupting the CEO mid-sentence to declare Vanessa's piece on algorithmic bias in music duration the most culturally urgent thing we've ever published. Some said he slammed his laptop shut for emphasis. Others claimed he used the phrase transformative black insight, which made the front-end dev team laugh so hard they added it to the office bingo board. Vanessa heard about it from 2 different people before she even saw Blake that day. "You've got the VP going to bat for you now," one coworker joked near the snack shelf. "Must be nice." Vanessa forced a smile, grabbed a protein bar, and ducked back to her desk. She knew the meeting had happened because Blake had texted her afterward with a vague, "Fought for your piece, got heated. You owe me a good headline now." She had ignored the message. It wasn't that she didn't appreciate the support. It was that she didn't ask for it, didn't know how much of it was genuine, and hated the creeping feeling that she was being drafted into some larger performance she hadn't signed up for. The piece in question had been a personal essay tangled with critique, part memoir, part cultural analysis. Written late one night after she realized how often her Spotify recommendations mirrored back the version of blackness the internet found most palatable. She hadn't even pitched it yet. She had sent it to Blake in a private doc with a subject line that read, "This might be too much for Vibe House, lol." Now it was a bullet point on his campaign roadmap. Later that week, she grabbed drinks with Tasha, a friend from college who was now a product manager at another startup nearby. "So, what's up with the dude?" Tasha asked casually, sipping her gin and tonic. "The one you keep mentioning without mentioning." "There is no dude," Vanessa said, too quickly. Tasha raised an eyebrow. "Girl, I work in tech. I know what a complicated workplace crush sounds like." Vanessa sighed. "It's nothing. He's my mentor, supervisor, ally with selective memory." Tasha leaned in. "Wait, is his name Blake? Blake Harrison?" Vanessa blinked. "You know him?" "More like I know of him," Tasha said. "Dated a friend of mine. Super smart, good with words, always made her feel like the muse and the mission. But then she stopped being useful to his personal rebrand and poof, he was done. Nice guy, but always marketing himself, even when he's trying not to." Vanessa didn't say anything for a while. At work, things with Blake became uneven. He was still charming, still quick to compliment her work, still sending late-night messages with headlines to workshop or links to relevant studies. But now, he hesitated before hitting send. Checked himself mid-joke, second-guessed his feedback. It wasn't that he wasn't trying, it was that he was trying too hard. One afternoon, while walking back from a team coffee run, he launched into an unsolicited monologue about James Baldwin. "I've been reading more," he said suddenly, as if the conversation had started in his head 5 minutes earlier. "Just trying to understand. The fire next time is, it's unbelievable, the way he talks about moral monsters. It hits." Vanessa blinked at him. "Okay. I'm just saying," he continued, clearly nervous now. "I didn't grow up reading stuff like that. But I want to learn, you know?" "You don't need to quote Baldwin to talk to me like a person," she said flatly. Blake stopped walking. "I wasn't trying to impress you," he said. "Then who were you trying to prove it to?" He didn't answer. After that, the tension between them stopped being subtext. It became visible, tangible. Coworkers started asking if she was okay. One person, an intern she barely knew, asked if she and Blake had, dated and broken up or something. In meetings, she kept her ideas tight and impersonal. No asides, no improvising. Blake stopped hovering near her desk. Their Slack banter dried up to short replies and one-word reactions. Eventually, she went to HR. "I want to switch mentors," she said calmly, without explanation. The woman nodded, eyes flicking briefly to Vanessa's name in the system, where she knew there was a note about her being part of the Voices of the Now initiative. "Of course," she said. "We'll take care of it." The next morning, Blake showed up at her desk, holding 2 coffees, awkward and unsure of his welcome. "I heard," he said. She didn't look up. "I'm not mad," he added. "I get it." Vanessa finally glanced at him. "Do you?" He set the coffee down next to her mousepad. "You make me want to do this job better. You scare the hell out of me, but not in a bad way." She let the silence sit. "You don't need to perform accountability for me," she said eventually. "I'm not," he said. "I just don't know how to be real with you without screwing it up." She looked at the coffee. "Then maybe don't try to be anything. Just be honest, even when it's messy." He nodded, but she could tell he didn't fully know what that meant yet. She turned back to her screen. "Thanks for the coffee," she said. And that was it. Then came the joke. Well, not a joke exactly, more like a pressure valve disguised as satire. Vanessa had written the piece late on a Thursday, frustrated after another branding brainstorm where the phrase authentic inclusion had been repeated so many times she started to hear it in her sleep. The essay was sharp, pointed, and unapologetically dry. Titled, Allyship for Algorithms, a 5-step guide to looking woke without doing anything. It skewered the industry's obsession with optics and the way Black voices were often reduced to seasonal accessories in corporate storytelling. She laced it with humor, but there was no mistaking the fury under the surface. She filed it under the internal draft queue intended for staff review, not public publishing, and went home without mentioning it to anyone. By mid-morning Friday, it had quietly spread through internal Slack like a secret playlist. People were laughing, nervously, unsure if it was a pitch or a protest. By noon, it had hit the private editor's channel, where one manager commented, "Savage but true," and another added a crying emoji. But when Vanessa checked the content queue around 3 p.m., the piece was gone. Not unpublished, deleted. She stared at the empty project folder for a full minute before standing up and walking deliberately toward Blake's office. He was typing something when she entered. He looked up, already bracing himself. "Did you pull it?" she asked. Blake leaned back in his chair, exhaling. "I didn't delete anything," he said. "That's not a no." "I said I didn't delete it. But you know it's gone." He hesitated. "I saw it, this morning." And I knew it was going to explode," he said. "I thought maybe we should talk about where it fits, if it fits, before someone puts it in front of the wrong exec, and they decide you're a liability instead of a voice." Vanessa narrowed her eyes. "So you didn't delete it, but you made a call to someone who did." "That's not what happened," Blake said, quieter now. "But you're not surprised it's gone." He didn't answer. She crossed her arms. "You said you wanted me to push boundaries. You said you respected my voice." "I do," he said quickly. "But this was more than just voice. This was a missile. Parentheses. It was truth. Funny truth, which this place is supposedly built on." "I'm trying to protect you," Blake said, but the words sounded thin. "Don't," she snapped. "Don't act like that's noble. Don't protect me from the consequences of my own clarity." His face hardened. "You think I'm doing this for me? I think you're doing it to manage optics, again, and you're using me to do it." He stood now, too. "That's not fair." "No," she said. "What's not fair is being asked to be bold and black and brilliant on cue, until it makes someone in a blazer uncomfortable." He rubbed a hand over his face. "I've gone to bat for you more times than you know." "I didn't ask you to," she said. "Not if you're going to pull rank when I actually say something that matters." Blake's jaw tensed. "You treat me like I'm the enemy." "Sometimes you act like one," she said. The room felt hot now, her voice was shaking, but she didn't care. He looked at her, not angry anymore, just tired. "You think I don't care about you, that I'm just another white guy collecting proximity points for being the good one. Maybe I don't know how to prove I'm not. Maybe there's no way to prove it." She stared at him. "Then maybe stop trying to prove it, just be it." There was a long pause. Then he exhaled resignedly. I should have let the piece run, he admitted quietly. Vanessa nodded, jaw tight. Yeah, you should have. Neither of them moved. Finally, she stepped back, toward the door. I'm not your project, Blake. I know. I'm not your redemption arc. He flinched slightly. I know that too. I don't need your guilt, she added. I need my work to matter. You matter, he said. So softly she almost didn't hear it. But she did. And it hurt. She left without another word. The next few days were quiet. Vanessa buried herself in other projects, ones that felt small and safe. She took longer walks on her lunch breaks and ignored the way people avoided eye contact when they passed her desk. The deleted piece lingered like phantom pain, still alive in office memory, but nowhere to be found. Blake, for his part, kept his distance. No Slack messages, no late-night pings, no performative apologies. It was, finally, the professional boundary she had asked for, and yet part of her missed the version of them that had existed in that weird space between flirty Slack threads and rooftop honesty. The version where it almost felt like they could be real with each other. Almost. Whatever they were building had cracked. Maybe it couldn't be fixed. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be. But even in the silence, Vanessa couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't done, that there was still something unfinished between them. And in a place like House, unfinished things had a way of going viral again. The article dropped on a Tuesday morning with the precision of a scalpel and the weight of a sledgehammer. It wasn't a typical takedown. There were no loud accusations, no ex-employees frothing at the mouth. But it was damning in a quieter, more cutting way. Titled, Polished Optics, Hollow Core, The Diversity Problem at House. The piece painted a vivid picture of a company that sold progressivism while quietly upholding the same power dynamics it claimed to disrupt. Anonymous sources spoke of performative campaigns, PR-driven mentorships, editorial gatekeeping, masked as brand cohesion. One quote stood out. There's a difference between being valued for your insight and being used as proof someone else is insightful. At House, that line gets blurred every day. Vanessa read it once. Then again, she recognized her own words, paraphrased, softened just enough to protect her. She didn't regret contributing. Not really. She'd been careful. But the sight of her thoughts, framed in someone else's structure and broadcast, dissected and retweeted, still made her stomach twist. By noon, #VibeHouse hypocrisy was trending. Blake found out before the article hit the timeline. Someone from PR burst into his office with a link and a preemptive strategy deck. You're not quoted, they told him, but you're mentioned. There's insinuation. He skimmed the article once, then again. He didn't see his name, but he saw himself everywhere. The mentorship program, the ghost-deleted article, the uncomfortable rooftop silence. By mid-afternoon, he'd been removed from 3 high-profile projects while things settled. His calendar cleared like a dropped call. He wasn't angry. He was tired. Mostly, he was embarrassed. Not because of the article, but because it took a public reckoning for him to understand just how much he'd missed. Not just professionally, personally. Vanessa had always told the truth, even when it made him squirm. She'd been right more often than he wanted to admit. She didn't just challenge his assumptions, she made him want to stop having assumptions at all. He missed her. Not just her ideas, her presence, the unfiltered way she saw things. The way she could cut through a conversation like a well-aimed headline. He realized now how much of what he admired about her he had tried to manage instead of honor. Vanessa, meanwhile, had pivoted. She submitted her resignation letter days after the piece went viral, and HR did not protest her not giving a 2-week notice. She started freelancing. A few contacts from Twitter reached out. An editor she'd met at a conference offered her a column. Nothing huge yet, but it felt freer. She could write what she wanted. She could choose what to say no to. Still, the silence between her and Blake echoed in her heart a lot more, and for a lot longer than she expected it to. It wasn't that she wanted him back, not in the same way, but sometimes, when she finished a piece, she'd catch herself wondering what he would say about it. Not the polished VP version of him, the real one. The one who used to stay up late, workshopping titles with her over Slack, half of them ridiculous. The one who once admitted he still didn't understand what Black Twitter actually was, but was willing to listen. She wasn't sure if she missed him, or the idea of him she'd been building in her head. One night, She published a short essay with no fanfare, just a personal reflection on public apologies, corporate shame, and what it means to own harm when you've caused it unintentionally. It wasn't about Blake, not directly, but it carried his shadow. 3 days later, he emailed her. The subject line was plain: no defense, just this. She stared at it for a long time before opening it. Vanessa, I've rewritten this 5 times. Each draft sounded more like a press release than a human being, so I deleted all of them. This is me trying to be human. I read your latest piece, more than once. I don't deserve a response, but I want to tell you something anyway. You were right, not just about that article that never got published, about the bigger stuff too, about me. I wanted to be someone who could mentor without performing, support without centering myself, uplift without extracting. I thought I was. I wasn't. The truth is, I leaned on you, not just for your talent, but for your clarity. I wanted your voice in the room because it made the room better, but I didn't always make sure you were credited. And sometimes, without meaning to, I treated your insight like currency I could trade. I see that now. I'm sorry. Not because of the fallout or the articles or the brand. I'm sorry because I lost the chance to really know someone who was trying to tell me the truth all along. And I miss knowing you. Not the headlines, you. Take care. Vanessa didn't reply right away. She read the message 3 times, once as herself, once as the girl who first walked into that office with her arms crossed and her sarcasm sharpened, and once as someone who wasn't sure whether forgiveness had to mean reconnection. She wasn't angry anymore, not exactly, just weary. But she had to admit, the apology didn't feel rehearsed. It didn't feel like branding. It felt like someone rewriting a script, finally starting on page 1 with no audience in mind. Maybe that was the beginning of his honesty, or maybe it was just what it claimed to be: no defense, just this. The summit was held in a repurposed, open-concept, string-light lit spaces that tried not to feel like a conference room warehouse in Oakland. It smelled faintly of pour-over coffee and overpriced wood polish. Vanessa stepped onto the stage just past 4 p.m., after a panel about AI and authenticity that left her mildly annoyed. She didn't use a teleprompter, didn't need one. Her keynote was stitched from the same thread she'd been following since leaving Vibe House: voice, ownership, the quiet power of making things outside the machine. She didn't name names. She didn't have to. In the crowd near the back, Blake sat with a notebook open, pen still capped. He didn't take notes. He just listened. They saw each other again at the catered reception. No one was networking aggressively, which helped. Vanessa was near the tea station when she noticed him, standing just close enough to be noticed. He looked different, lighter maybe, or less pressed. No blazer, no badge lanyard. "Didn't expect to see you here," she said. Not unkindly. "I wasn't sure I'd come," he admitted, "but I'm glad I did." She took a sip of her lukewarm tea. "Still in content?" "Sort of," he said. "Consulting now. Helping fund some smaller platforms. No decks, no OKRs. Just trying to stay out of the way." "That's ambitious," she said. He smiled. "I've been called worse." They were quiet for a moment. "I read that piece you wrote on exit culture," he said finally, still thinking about that last paragraph. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "You memorizing my work again?" "Only the best parts," he shrugged. "Which is most of it." She rolled her eyes, but there was warmth behind it now. They went to simple dinner that evening, a late reservation at a small place in Temescal, with too many plants and a handwritten menu. No titles, no tension. They talked about freelance gigs and weird editorial requests, and how both of them now found deadlines more freeing than stressful. At some point, he said, "I know we're not picking up where we left off. That's not what I'm asking." "I know," she said. "That version of us didn't work. But this one might," he offered, with a small shrug, raising his eyebrows in a wry smile. She didn't promise anything, but she didn't say no. Weeks later, they were sitting in Vanessa's apartment on a quiet Sunday afternoon, laptops open but idle, a half-eaten box of takeout between them. They weren't working on anything with a name or a brief, just something small, something they'd been tossing around for fun, a joint essay about music and memory, written in alternating voices. No bylines, no angle, just them. Vanessa typed a line and turned the screen toward him. "Too much?" He read it, nodded. "Just enough." She smirked. "You're biased." "Absolutely," he said. They kept going. Words passed back and forth. Edits made without argument. They didn't rush it. There wasn't a deadline. At least, not until her phone buzzed. A calendar reminder, client edit due at 6. They both looked at the screen. I forgot about that, she said. You still have time, he said. Want to finish this after? He smiled. I'm not going anywhere. She leaned back, stretched, then reopened a tab. He picked at a cold dumpling. No grand gestures, no perfect endings. Just two people figuring it out, one sentence at a time.